If the problem is a big, massive chocolate elephant, people say, how do you eat a chocolate elephant, a small bite at a time? None of their developers at any of these portfolio companies manual code. What the smaller, earlier startups have as a massive advantage over us is speed. If they're thinking about things and procrastinating and perfecting solutions, they'll just fall by the wayside.
Hello and welcome back to the NXL podcast. We have Stephen Barnham with us today, the Group Chief Digital and Information Officer at Dai-ichi Life Group. Looking forward to hearing more. How are you, Stephen?
Good morning to you, Liz. I am absolutely fantastic. Just coming towards the end of our day in Tokyo. Looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, good. I enjoyed sending you the brief for today whilst I was going to sleep and you were waking up. I think that's
Yeah,
always a very efficient way of working.
that's
So
right.
tell us about yourself, about your history, your role, what it means to be working at Dai-ichi.
Yeah, sure. So I like to think myself primarily as a technologist. I studied computer science in the days before the internet was even invented a long, long time ago. And I've been a developer pretty much all of my career. I'm from the UK originally, but I've lived all over the world, including here in Japan and in China, India, and Singapore, leading, transforming organizations, and always using technology, digital. I now work in the life industry. I predominantly worked in banking and investment banking, working on trading platforms and risk management platforms. And a few years ago, I had enough of banking and I thought I'd try out the life industry because I thought it was a very personal and human industry, and an industry with a number of fundamental problems that I thought technology could help solve. And also, it was an industry that I could easily explain to my mother because my mother never fully understood what an investment bank was, and because she couldn't open an account there, but at least she understands what a life insurance company is. So that's what has brought me to life insurance, and that is what has brought me here to Daiichi.
Excellent. And yeah, it's good. I'm glad you said life insurance because you were saying life. And obviously, we met through our past history in the insurance industry. And Daiichi is a massive name within that. Specifically in Japan, it's so exciting when you go. If you haven't heard of Daiichi before, you suddenly walk around and every building has the brand on it. So yeah, I would love to hear a bit more about Daiichi and kind of its history within Japan, because I think this really gives a lot of information about where we go with the conversation.
Yeah, wonderful. So we are at one level over 124-year-old company. So we have a long heritage. Yet in some respects, I'd like to think we are a 3-year-old company. And to explain that a little bit, so we started many years ago, as mentioned, in Tokyo, and we were a startup. We were pioneers in the life insurance industry, and our founder was a person who believed in well-being and the health of the Japanese people, and he brought many concepts of pooled risk and actuarial and the concepts of mortality. He studied abroad, and he brought it in an innovative fashion 124 years ago when he established our company. And therefore, fast forwarding to about 100 years ago, when my boss, our new CEO, was appointed as CEO, he set us as an ambition to become, within a few years, a 6 trillion yen company and then a 10 trillion yen company. I'm very happy to say that 2 weeks ago we became a 6 trillion yen company. We
Wow.
reached our first goal.
Congratulations.
So that was fantastic. We are Japan's largest listed life insurance company, one of the largest life insurance companies in Japan and indeed across Asia and the world because of our presence in the United States. We are the largest by far life insurance company in Australia, and we have leading positions, as I was mentioning, across Asia, Mekong, and in the United States. We have recently started to take an interest in the UK, and we have a great strategic partnership now with M&G through our investments in them. And primarily, our conversation always starts with the customer and how can we use technology, digital, AI, whatever it is, to create fantastic products that meet our growing customers' needs? How can we create an environment where customers can easily understand those products and purchase them and then continue with their lives and lead the best life that they can leave, supported by Dai-ichi throughout their journey.
Absolutely. Okay, that's brilliant explanation. And yeah, to put it in context, obviously I was working from your office for a couple of months, and that was a great experience. And there was a great combination of it sitting right next to the Imperial Palace. It's even got a museum on the sixth floor. It's potted with history, but as you said, you've crossed the whole of the world and helping so many people. I think that brings us on to our first topic. I really want to start with high performance. Obviously, to get to 6 trillion, and it's such a the yen makes it sound like a fantastic number as well. The trillion, I love it. But yeah, so when I was working with you and we did a trip to Hiroshima, um, we met one of the top performing sales reps for Dai-ichi, and I think this comes back to what you were saying around how you deliver this customer experience. And I think you said there's over 40,000 sales reps, and to be in that top handful is clearly high performance. What stood out for me was there was such an eye for detail, for that customer experience, deeply understanding the proposition. But when you walked into their office, what was really clear, there was a big whiteboard and everyone knew everyone's numbers. We knew who was at the top. The business card had the gold sticker on it. And I found that so interesting to come from, obviously this mega corporation, to have, someone who clearly is so proud and so understanding of what high performance is an achievement. But yeah, I would love to hear from you, especially from around the world and these experiences that you see. What are those common themes that you see in high performers and how they stand out?
Yeah, sure. So to pick up on the example of the Hiroshima sales office that we visited, you're right. It's one of our the person who leads that. She's one of our top sales across the entire country, and I think the way she achieves that high level of performance is a deep commitment to understanding her customer. So she will start with an individual and develop a relationship with him or her, and think about what financial products might that customer need, and start by perhaps selling that customer some form of life insurance. But then she sees beyond that, and not just beyond that individual, not just that individual and his or her life, but the broader, if you like, ecosystem around that individual. So that individual, they may be a small, medium-sized enterprise owner. So she then explains to them, well, for your company, perhaps they need protection and they need to think about life insurance and health insurance and other types of financial instruments for their lives. So she not only understands the customer, thinks about products that match them as an individual, but thinks about their broader ecosystem of relationships into it and including their companies, and she has upselled into those companies. So you have an example of a life insurance salesman who has obviously sold them life insurance, but she has also realized that they have a need for other types of insurance. And there was an example of a CEO of a company, a construction company we met. She had sold them vehicle insurance for their fleet of dumper trucks. And Dai-ichi doesn't even write that sort of business. And she had managed to source that business, sell it to them. And so she becomes the complete financial services solution for that company and that individual, I would say CEO, owner. And I think this is that attitude towards the customer where you capture them in that way and they become completely reliant on you because you've built such a level of trust. I think that's the ultimate in performance.
Yeah, it's that ownership level. I think taking it beyond just a job or a process and thinking about how you can holistically help and create that value for someone. That's it's definitely something we see from high performance. It's constant value creation at every single point.
Yeah.
Is that something? Obviously, you've now got teams across the world and you've worked in different places. Is that a common theme you see? Wherever you might be, it's that value creation ownership that leads to people who are being high performance.
That's right. So whether that's in Japan that I just described it, or in Australia where we have a leading position with supers there, and we partner with our tech teams and obviously the sales team to build out integrated solutions, seeing understanding the customer needs and working out how we can fulfill them. It's not just selling them some life insurance, it's much broader than that. How can they integrate our technology, their technology into ours, so that we can facilitate payments in a more smooth fashion? How do we integrate, especially group businesses, into their HR platforms, for example? So having this holistic view of the customers, be that in Japan or Australia or in the United States, is really critical, and I would say a differentiator, and that's where we get performance from.
Really, really interesting. Yeah, I think 'cause obviously I come from a revenue lens, and that ownership word that we use was interesting because we talk a lot about accountability. Obviously that whiteboard really stuck with me because even if you are the top performing person for a decade, you still fill out that whiteboard every single day. And I think it brings confidence, it brings the ability to go out and create those new ideas. Just like a sports person, if you're not confident, you're not going to try new things, and all those things flow through. It's so interesting to hear wherever you go, it's the same trends. So yeah, so I do have a couple revenue questions for you. So I know you're a product and innovation person, but you've had the most amazing career full of seeing different companies. You're obviously an investor and have had that ability to really get deep. And what I would love to know is, we're talking about high performance, but from a revenue engine perspective, when you do see companies that are succeeding, are there particular things that you see from their revenue teams or the way that they're generating revenue that really stands out?
So it really depends at what stage the investment starts from, and obviously at seed level, relatively early stages, it's the promise of revenues and it's the promise of what may come. But even with that promise, a fixture on that bold ambition, I think, is really critical. And a company that you and I have both worked really close with, you Life, I think one of their differentiators is the ability of their founders to think in bold and optimistic terms, and then to set that bold ambition and head towards that. Now, in the case of you Life, it's in the set of some bold revenue numbers that they aim for and often achieve that, and that's how they become the great organisation that they are. Now, similarly, going back to revenue numbers in other companies and other types of investments I've been involved in. I think as setting of bold targets is really important, but also remembering that these companies are reimagining an industry. They're driven on innovation, and we've been in business 124 years. We've had plenty of time to get it wrong. These relative newcomers haven't been around, some cases even 5 years, or in many cases even less than that. If they don't then realize those targets, it's okay. We learn from it, we reconfigure things, iterate, and then start off perhaps in a slightly different direction. So the revenue and the targets and the ambitious revenue is what drives you, gets you up in the morning. But then, and if we achieve them, then great, and sometimes we do. But sometimes if those investments don't, that's also okay. It doesn't mean it's the end of the road. You learn really, really quickly, and you pivot really quickly, and you go on to maybe a slightly different direction, and you go towards the next set of bold revenue targets. So I think they are really important, but particularly with early stage companies, you have to be a little careful not to quickly, throw in the towel, they didn't make it, that's it. But you just have to think, right, innovate and iterate, and then think about how you can reposition the company better.
Yeah, absolutely. I know in Japan it's long-term thinking as well. So 50-year plans over 5-year plans. No, it's really interesting, which is ultimately place high targets, but actually do everything you can to meet them. And if you don't, you pivot, you create a new opportunity. You mentioned the 6 trillion target that Dai-ichi had,
Yes,
and then moving on to 10 trillion.
yes.
What kind of enables you guys to hit those targets? Because that's a huge feat to set something and then follow through with it.
Well, that's right. And if you look at life insurance and you think, well, if I'm going to invest, is this a high growth business? It's sometimes hard to see how you would get that level of, of growth. And I think the way that we have done that is through thinking differently about what is really quite an old product set, thinking differently about the customer experience and our changing customer needs, thinking about the products that we share, that we sell to our customers, offer to our customers to help them support their lives so that we are in their journey throughout their lives there to help and support them. And I think through areas like this is how we have managed to achieve it. And of course, my particular interest in all of that is how we are achieving that growth with technology as a driver, with technology at the heart of the company. You look at our business strategy, you'll see at the heart of it digital data AI, which is the driving force behind that. And so I think these are some of the factors that have helped us to achieve that, the first step of our ambition at least.
Yeah, and it's a good segue into AI because I know we're going to have a good chat about it. But from that revenue perspective, as you said, you can have high performers, but without the infrastructure and the product and the systems behind them, Shay and I and Excel, we've launched teams in Japan, South Africa, the US, the UK, and it's that combination of bringing together infrastructure and the human side, which really enables driving that revenue. I'm really interested to hear, 125-year-old company, historic systems, legacy systems, but AI is changing everything. I would love to hear kind of the possibilities it's opened up, where you're going with it, and the opportunity.
Uh, yeah, so the legacy systems, particularly for the life industry, it's not just Japan. It's not unique, particularly to Japan. I would say it's across a lot of life players, where by the nature of the products, we offer products that are around for the whole of people's lives. People are living longer, or at least for 30, 40, 50 years. And the technology that was around when those products were sold is still in existence now, processing those products, maintaining names and addresses, and doing all kinds of administration on those policies. And up until now, it's been risky to migrate that or to modernize that. And I thought I wouldn't see it, certainly in my lifetime. Certainly a company the size of ours, I thought I'd be solving other problems. This was just one big, if you like, problem too much, I thought. So, and then in very recent times, I mean, this is literally in like the last 12 months or so, with companies such as Anthropic and the tools that they have been developing, you're now able to think about these large problems, analyze them, understand what's in there, and then start to redevelop them and convert them into more contemporary technology much faster and with much less risk than you could before. So now we think we can start to modernize this technology and in a far shorter period of time. And certainly within my career and my lifetime when I'll be looking at it, and we're really excited about this. We see there's nothing short of transformation of our business to actually become a cloud first company.
Oh, that will be brilliant, and I think this is such an interesting point is converting traditional systems. You hear these stories of specialists in a certain software which have maintained, a 20, 30-year career and just maintaining legacy. And I guess AI has now opened that up for you, right? You can with a small amount of engineers completely, revolutionize what was historically there. And how long do you see that project going on for, moving to the cloud? Because what I think is really interesting is you have small providers like us, who are being able to kind of nibble away at large providers because we have a small team, no legacy systems. So yeah, how long does that take, and what's the process look like?
Well, I can't answer that question because the response to that question changes almost every month.
Yeah.
If you had asked me that question 12 months ago, I would have said to you 20 years. Just a very, very, very long time. Not at the moment. Yet, as time has passed and technology has accelerated, it's now clear that it's certainly much shorter than that. How much shorter than that, we are now finding out through our experimentation. So if the problem is a big, massive chocolate elephant, people say, how do you eat a chocolate elephant, small bite at a time? And so we're taking off small bites, analysing it, taking particular businesses, and then migrating that over, testing what we have. We have a duty to existing customers, to their data, and to ensure that it's safe and that we maintain exactly the same product information. And so we have to be very careful with that. So I think the way I respond to that is it's now a lot easier to do it than it was before, and it's going to take a lot less time than we thought it would in the past. Exactly how much, though, we're finding that out almost week by week as we get to know these tools a bit more, and the tools are changing and improving as we talk.
Well, if it's a chocolate elephant, it wouldn't last long in my household, so it'd be very quick. It would. No, I totally agree. We've got a team of 5 engineers who are superb. You know, especially when it comes to prompt engineering and building agentic systems. And you can really see just what would have taken 100 people before is now rapidly changing. The amount of investment as well, which I'm sure is a massive piece when it comes to your budgeting. Um, as well. Do you think there's any like big internal blockers? So, there's people upskilling, there's obviously the infrastructure, there's adversity to change. Like, what do you see as that biggest blocker within traditional businesses to really take on this technology and run?
Yeah, I mean, some of the points is technical, so upgrading legacy infrastructure to facilitate this, of course, getting in the right tooling, making sure people know how to use it, making sure people have the right mindset and how they use it. But it's really this last point, the mindset, that I think is one of the biggest challenges. It's human, it's not technical. And it's how do you take people working in an industry that's largely been unchanged from the last 150 years. Fundamentally, how insurers, particularly life insurers, conduct much of their business is not hugely different to how they did it 100 years ago. Yes, it's more computers, more technology, and clearly more automation than happened 100 years ago, but pretty much the processes are the same. And the resulting customer experiences, particularly in life insurance, are not great. So I think getting people out of that mindset, it's all what got us here is going to get us there. I think is important, because what got us here was fantastic and we enjoyed 100 odd years of huge success. But from now, with changing customer expectations, with changing demographics, technology has a huge role to play, but the mindset around how you engage with that technology and reimagine your own jobs is turning to be really, really critical. And it's not so much that I'm going to automate the processes I have now, but it's a question of, well, do I really even need the processes that I have now? And there was a famous management thinker who said there's nothing so useless as automating something and doing it efficiently that you don't need to do at all. And I think that's very much the mindset. You need to be thinking, first of all, do I need to do this at all? And then applying the tech to the whole different ways of working. That's the hard bit, coming up with these different ways of working and changing the mindset.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's kind of the internal problems and then the external, which is how we work internally to keep up, and then externally how people perceiving. Do you think there's a certain robustness being in an industry like insurance, where obviously if you're a technology provider, everything could fall through, in a day's time, if that's where your ICP is, but being an insurance provider and not necessarily having, there's something financial and hard to it, which makes it more robust. Do you think this gives you a bit more time, or do you think it means you have to innovate faster because there's a bigger opportunity to beat the competitors?
Oh, I think it's very much the latter. The robustness, or the perception of robustness, comes from having such a long tenured set of products because it can fool you into thinking, I can sit back, cash out the premiums. Even if my new business expansion doesn't go that well, I can live off the in-force block that's still paying premiums, and we'll all live happily ever after. Unfortunately, that in-force block is also shrinking as policies come up and end, and obviously as people pass away. So I think the differentiator for us is the speed with which we can adopt the new technology to transform that business, and the speed with which we can work out new ways of working.
Ah, very interesting. Okay, so yeah, so it's quite the robustness I was perceiving is actually something which is the legacy is slowly going down. It's how you can innovate faster, essentially, compared to the competition. So when you look at so outside of Dai-ichi, when you look at smaller businesses on this same note, how do you, from an investment VC lens, how do you kind of perceive which businesses are the ones who are who are innovating fast enough or who are building in the right way? Because I think this is, everyone can vibe code now, and it's very interesting to hear, you're actively looking and actively working with businesses. What already separates, the strong ones from the weak ones?
So with where the cloud started the journey and gave many startups superpowers. They didn't any longer need to buy up and make big, expensive commitments to data centers and then face month-long delays in the building of equipment and preparing the data center space. They can now, it's all one click. And similarly, with vibe coding and AI-driven software development, it's further enhanced those superpowers. So this enables relatively small companies to start to pick off interesting parts of established infrastructures, established businesses, and then start to challenge them. So whether it's, let's take stock trading and how companies can look for certain asset managers are looking to buy or sell blocks of stock. The matching of the availability of blocks of stock, which is a very niche requirement in the area of stock trading, which a particular startup I know is now trying to disrupt. It's able to do that with very few people and move very quickly because of what technology enables it to do. So the ability to realize that there is a problem there to be fixed, the ability to then work out how the software that you can generate can fix that problem, quickly test the product market fit, and then go to market, I think is a differentiator. What the smaller, earlier startups have as a massive advantage over us is speed and the lack of bureaucracy and how quickly they can go from zero to solution. And if they're moving at that pace, then I think they can win and differentiate themselves and go through that cycle I just described. If they're thinking about things and procrastinating and perfecting solutions, then they'll slow down to our pace, and they don't have the capital base and history and reputation and existing customer base we have, and they'll just fall by the wayside. So that ability to move at pace, I think, is differentiating.
That's interesting, and I think there's also the difference between, it's so quick now to build something from a technology perspective, but it's the speed to scalability is what we've seen, something that can work across multiple customers. Is there something you see from the team? Because what I find really interesting now is in reality there aren't so many experts in AI, as everyone's learning on the job. A new model comes out every single day. So what is it that you look for in a team? Because not everyone can be the top Sakana AI expert that you see in Japan. Like, what is it that these teams have that you look for and you see as why they are accelerating fast?
Yeah, so it's it does require some level of knowledge, I think, where to start and technical capability. But even some of the best developers have legacy. They have their own status quo biases. I would say especially some developers who have been developing for a long period of time. It's always worked for me, so why do I need to change? I think having an open mindset that what's true today almost certainly won't be true tomorrow, because yeah, of course, model improvements are coming out, but then new concepts are coming out as well. And companies like Anthropic, supported by and partnered with by Microsoft, I think are kind of leading the way amongst the others as well. So an ability to be ready to change your mind completely about a set of assumptions that you had about how you would solve a certain problem. I was in Silicon Valley a couple of months ago, meeting with some VCs, and I met with some of their portfolio companies, and none of their developers at any of these portfolio companies manual code. It's all about how they manage agents and manage agents that manage agents that then do the coding for them. And this means it gives them mass scalability. They suddenly go from 3 developers and or to say the effectiveness of as much as 20, 25. I mean, I don't know exactly what the ratio is, but that ability and that ability to scale their developers and completely change how software is created, I think is really critical, and certainly what we look for when we invest as a company, and then what I look for as well when I think about investments.
That's really interesting. And when you bring that back into Dai-ichi, so you have these amazing experiences, you see the art of the possible. How do you empower your team to go on the same journey that you see from, the Anthropic or, San Francisco style that you mentioned?
Yeah. So first of all, empowering them starts at several levels. Uh, Bring them along to hear stories. I met with a great company called Ethos Life. They are probably one of the world's most advanced life insurance companies. If I was building a life insurer tomorrow, I'd build Ethos Life. They just listed. I think their history is about 5 or 6 years old. And taking some of my staff to hear the founders talk about how they think about putting together products, how they sell products and distribute products, how they pay their agents and how quickly they pay their agents, how quickly they can issue policies. So first of all, it's through education and them realizing it in their mind, a vision, and sharing the vision. And then the next level of empowerment is very, very basic. It's removing administrative hurdles, removing technical hurdles, so that technologists have a great environment to code in, to create technology. And collectively I being the leadership, take care of administrative matters behind that. The administrative matters are important because we're in a regulated industry. We are trusted with customer information, we're trusted with customers' money, and we need to adopt a high level of responsibility around that. Indeed, we do that. And so we have to balance that with creating environments where some of our most brilliant minds can completely use their brilliant minds to realize the potential of it, but within a protected environment.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. What we've seen is, you've obviously got brilliant people with a great tech track record, and then it's giving them the environment to be curious, and the best people have that determination once they find that curiosity to keep moving forward. So as you said, giving them the platforms and the tools, and sometimes maybe we're spending a little bit too much on certain tools, but that's kind of what enables everyone to have that curiosity and learn, and they can say, actually, no, this is where we're going. This is the one that 5 times is our output. Okay, nice. And so I saw, and we were talking about it before, but you're on the JA Asia Pacific Council. You're one of the key members on the body, and so you're leading some of the AI innovation, within your region. One, I'd love to hear about that council and the work you do, but also, you know, that makes you are an expert, but you have to stay on top of everything the whole time. It's moving so fast. So how do you bring to that role, the top expertise, the latest information, so you can, move the region and the industry in the right direction?
Right. So JA Junior Achievement is a non-for-profit company that does great work in a long history throughout the world in education, and preparing the youth of today for their future lives. They do a lot more than that, but that's broadly what they do. Now, as part of that, I sit on the JA Asia Pacific board, and we have recently established an AI council. Now, I wouldn't say I lead that. I think I partner with some other people who are actually really smart and brilliant on that council. I just come and help really make up some of those numbers and bring my best experiences to that and advice. But I would like to emphasize there are some really brilliant people on that come from different parts of industry and education. And what we've just established this, and one of the reasons we've established it is because almost goes without saying that AI is already playing the role in the youth of today, and will, we believe, transform our lives and therefore have a huge impact on the future of those youth and young learners. And one of the things that I'm particularly interested in this is I just finished academia where I did research on the digital divide, the inequality that arises through digital and all of this technology is something that concerns me, and I think there is things we can do about it through education. And I think AI, if we are not careful, may accelerate some of that digital divide. And so one of the things I am hoping to achieve through JA and my role is to see how we can close that digital divide through education and through awareness and through offering career advice in a very rapidly changing world driven by AI.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think there's so many points in there I'd want to pick up, but the one which is, there's a huge problem in the world, which is people coming out of universities or out of education, and they're not finding jobs because there's a lot of people saying, well, there's this middle ground of, is AI going to take over the junior worker, and upskilling people. If you want to see on a CV now, you want to see people know how to use Claude. They already come with their portfolio of Claude skills, or whatever it might be. And that doesn't happen without communities like you're building, which is fantastic. So we'll put a link in the bio as well, so people can find out a bit more. So you mentioned your academia. So you've been studying, you've been learning.
Yes, I went back to university again after over 3 decades, and I wanted to study something. It's something that started over COVID, really. I did an undergraduate in philosophy, and then that motivated me to go on to do a master's in global justice and ethics. And as I mentioned, I particularly focused on the internet, digital technology, really, and the importance of the internet in people's lives. And when you think about it, not having adequate internet access could mean you may not be able to live your life. You may not be able to bank in some places, remote places. You may not be able to shop for food. You may not be able to get education. It's so critical. So I did some research into that, and I really enjoy thinking about these social themes and how technology forms our lives and will continue to form our lives.
That's it's very interesting. You were being very modest in your previous answer about your expertise, but coming circular from our start of our call and about high performance. What I've seen from doing some of these interviews is that high performers they're very interested and curious outside of just the pure work, and I would love to understand what motivates you to get up off your bum and go, you know what, I'm going to go study something in loads of detail, because it's very easy now just to sit at home and eat some ramen.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid that, and
Yeah.
I thought I started to look around. I thought, oh, I do more leadership courses or something to do with technology. I wanted something that really exercised my brain and made me think deeply. And I've never really studied humanities before. It's been finance and technology all the way. So that's why I chose it, to give me a big challenge, and it was a very big challenge. I was certainly by far the youngest in the class, and
Yeah.
it was a hybrid. So some of it was online, some of it I could go to in-person lectures, and it was just great mixing with people of different. Well, I don't know if it was great for them. It was great for me to
Yeah.
hear about mixing with people a lot younger than me from a different generation. And I think if we can mix across generations more, be it in an academic instance, we get to understand each other a bit better, and perhaps we can avoid some of the challenges that we see in the world today. I don't know, but that
Yeah,
was one of the
absolutely.
reasons why I did it.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important, not just through ages, but also just across countries. And I think, you've obviously lived an amazing life of, across the world. As we're going into this kind of personal, last personal question I asked, but kind of what gave you the drive to get up and move? And, those are big decisions. And it'd be great to hear how you reason that and, made it happen.
Yeah, so first of all, I didn't reason it at all. It was a very young former 24-year-old me that was working quietly at the London Stock Exchange, and just it was a great job. I was mixing with had great people in the team. I was having a ball. But then when I sat down, I thought, I'm going to bat an eyelid, and suddenly it'll be 40 years later, and I'd have continued to do this 9 to 5 job in London, and it was a sense of adventure. I wanted to go out to some place different, and not dissimilar to when I decided to take a humanities course. I thought, well, I could go to United States or Australia, but they speak English there, so I decided to go to Japan, where I was almost instantly a 5-year-old again because I couldn't understand a word of what anybody said or read anything. I wanted a real challenge, so a sense of adventure and pushing myself when I was younger. That's what originally took me out of the UK.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's obviously why you're so high performing is you've got a sense of adventure where and you follow through with it. And I say that there's something very impressive about going into your office and you're speaking fluent Japanese now to a very high business level. I could I can only get a few words out, so very very impressed with that. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the podcast, and we asked two questions to finish up. So the first one is. As we're being reflective as well, it's quite relevant. So, what's the one thing that you do as a leader, and in the way that you run your business or make decisions that you've never seen written down anywhere, but you know that works?
Uh, the one thing I do. Well, I think it's one thing I hope to do. I don't know if I always do it. My wife says I certainly don't always do it. And this goes back to something my mother used to say to me. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, that ratio. So plan to speak half as much than you listen. Plan to spend much more time listening to what people have to say and thinking deeply, and then consider your response. So I don't know if that's actually the right ratio, probably speaking a bit less than that. But spending more time listening to people in silence and really listening to get their point, and only after a good deal of listening then considering providing your own input to it. I don't know if I always succeed at that. Many may say I don't, but I think that I think is a very important point.
Yeah, so no, we see that the best thing you can do in sales is to sit back and listen. So totally agreed. The only time I question it is when you're on a podcast and being interviewed. So that's where your ratio changes for sure.
Indeed.
Okay, and the final question is, what would you tell your 10 years younger self? And what do you think you would tell your 10-year older self? What would you like to tell from both sides of it? I would love to hear.
Well, start with the younger self is that I mean, the 10 years younger me is still a lot older, possibly than you. That you always have much more runway than you think you do, and so even when you think you have less runway in career, runway morbidly in life, maybe you tend to start to get a little bit less, get a little bit more risk averse. Oh, I don't have much runway for a recovery. you have much more runway than you think for a recovery from a potential career decision that might be wrong, location decision that might be wrong. You have still a lot of runway, even at 10 years younger myself. And what would I say to 10 years older self is to keep exploring and stay curious and keep questioning things and exploring new things. I think that's really important. I could feel perhaps a whole lot of things get harder as you get older, not just getting out of bed in the morning. But 10 years later, you can think, well, I don't need so many things so much anymore. I might be a little bit less curious, but I'd like to stay curious and keep asking questions.
Absolutely. I think that we're going to have to get something tattooed, sense of adventure. Well, no tattoos in Japan, but something adventure related,
Yeah,
which is
well, indeed, yeah.
good. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation. There's lots of learnings in here, and I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, not really. That was my punchline. Was really that one at the end. T.S. Eliot, never stop. We shall never stop exploring. That is one of my favourite poems, and I think that's an important point. And let's end on that.
I think it's perfect. Anyway, have a lovely evening, and we'll speak soon.
And you have a great day. Thanks a lot, Lewis.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed
Bye.
it.